Today, Neale Pryor will conclude his message on So You Want to Get Married. Stay tuned.
The Churches of Christ of the North Texas area present The Truth in Love.
How precious is the book divine, by inspiration given. Bright as a lamp is grace that shine to guide my soul to heaven. Holy Bible, book divine, precious treasure thou art mine. Lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home. It sweetly cheers my drooping heart in this dark vale of tears. Light to my life is still imparts and quells my rising fears. Holy Bible, book divine, precious treasure thou art mine. Lamp to my feet and a light to my way, to guide me safely home.
Good morning. I'm your host, David Roper. Last week, Neale Pryor of Harding University began a very special lesson on So You Want to Get Married. He started talking about 3 P's. He first of all talked about God's plan for marriage. He stressed that marriage is for keeps, and that the only scriptural reason for divorce and remarriage is unfaithfulness on the part of the other marriage partner. And then he began to talk about the second P, the person that you ought to marry. He stressed that a Christian ought to marry a Christian. His first argument was that you ought to do it for the sake of the Scriptures. His second argument was that you should do it for the sake of your own soul. Now, he was on that point when we ran out of time last week. We're going to begin at that point right after this next song.
Christ, we do all adore thee, and we do praise thee forever. Christ, we do all adore thee, and we do praise thee forever. For on the holy cross hast thou the world from sin redeemed. Christ, we do all adore thee, and we do praise thee forever. Christ, we do all adore thee.
Young people, it is hard to be faithful to the Lord all your lives. You've got a lot of encouragement, most of you now, because you're in homes with faithful mothers and daddies, Christian mothers and daddies. But you can already see, if you attend a public school, the influence there by so many of your classmates to pull you away into their way of life. And believe you me, it's not going to get any easier. You get out in the work world, and you will just find it you're completely surrounded with ungodly influence. Young people, do you know what you need more than anything else that I can think of to help you remain faithful to God? You want to guess what it would be? It would be a faithful Christian husband or wife. That's what you need. You need someone that would encourage you to do what's right. No, we're not going to sleep in this morning. We're going to get up and go to Bible class. I don't care if you are tired. This is Wednesday night. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to be there. Wouldn't you love to be married to someone you had to keep dragging to church all your life? I was speaking at a youth rally not far from where I am right now, if my memory serves me. And I was speaking on a subject like this, and one little girl came up to me after it was over and said, I tried to get my boyfriend to come, but he just won't come to things like this with me. I said, well, I've never seen your boyfriend, but I've got a sneaking suspicion you've got the wrong boyfriend. You need to find a boyfriend that would encourage you to come to things like this instead of staying away and trying to keep you away. That's the kind of a husband or a wife you all need. Did you know that? You know, one of my pet peeves is these sweet little girls that find these sorry boys, think they've fallen in love with them, try to reform them and marry them. We have several of them at school. I guess it's that mother instinct. You know, they took care of our dolls, and then we take care of our little dog and our cat, and now we have to find some boy to take care of, you see. You don't need to find someone to take care of when you get married. You need to find someone big enough to stand on his own 2 feet. One time there was a girl that knocked on my office door at Harding, and her name was Sandy. I'd known her since she was about 10 or 11 years old. In fact, when I was a student, I preached where she went to church. And she came in and said, Brother Pryor, I'm going with this boy back home. He's not a Christian. He's not drinking like he used to, and he's been going to church a little with me on Sunday night. Brother Pryor, he's had a hard life. Of course, they've all had a hard life, you know. And then she had a little notepad with her and her pencil. She said, do you have any scriptures that I can use for him? Well, I just threw away all I'd been taught about how to be a good counselor and just reared back in the chair, and I said, Sandy, you need that boy like you need a hole in the head. I said, it just burns me up that here you have all these Christian boys in this Christian college, and you've gone home and found one of the sorriest things there, and you think you're going to marry him. That just burns me up. That's not the tactful approach, but that's what I told her, almost in those words. She said, oh, Brother Pryor, but I can help him. I said, you can't help him. You're so much in love, you can't do any good for anybody. With him especially. Now, I said, if you want to straighten out sorry boys, go to it. There are plenty of sorry boys that need straightening out. But marriage is not a mission field. Straighten out sorry boys, but when you're looking for one to marry, you don't marry a sorry boy. Well, she got up and left shortly after that. And I wondered what would happen from all this, and that was in the fall semester. And in the spring, she had never come back till the spring, and she knocked on my door. She had a roommate, Sharon, with her. She said, Brother Pryor, Sharon here is about to marry this boy that's not a Christian. Would you give her the same talk you gave me? I said, I would be delighted. Sit down here. And we worked on Sharon. And Sandy said, see, Sharon, Brother Pryor, that's what I've been telling her, but she won't listen to me. See? And this story has a sequel to it. I guess it was 10 years or more after that. I was preaching in Central Missouri in a meeting. And who walked in the door but Sandy with a Christian husband and a little baby on her. He was carrying the baby, I think, bouncing on his shoulder. So she had gotten her a good Christian man. I said, well, Sandy, while you're at it, whatever happened to Sharon? She said, oh, she married a Christian. 2 out of 2. That's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. I don't normally come out that well. For the sake of your soul, you need to marry a Christian. You don't need to marry just someone that's a Christian. You need to marry someone that is at least as devoted as you are. Sometimes a girl will say, oh yes, he was a Christian. He was baptized back in 1971. He hadn't been to church much lately, but he's a Christian. No, that's not what you need. You need someone that's dedicated to the Lord. One of my pockets here, there it is, I have some statistics that I want to share with you. The church in Miami, Oklahoma kept some statistics on their young people who married for 20 years. And during this 20-year period, 143 of them married. Of the 143 that married, 79 married in the church, and 79 married outside the church, and 64 married in the church. Of the 69 that married outside the church, of the 79 that married outside the church, 57 of them left the church. 57 out of 79 left the church. Only 22 remained faithful. Of these 22, 14 converted their partners and had a Christian home. Of these 79 that married outside the church, only 14 ever had a Christian home. Now, what's your percentage there? About 1 out of 6? The odds are right at 1 out of 6 that you'll ever have a Christian home when you marry outside the church. Well, I know what some of you are saying. Well, my mama converted my daddy, and my daddy converted my mama. Yes, that's true. But for every one that raises his hand where this has happened, just remember there are 5 more where it didn't work. Furthermore, of the 79 that married outside the church, 25 of them are now divorced. 1/3 almost are already divorced. Now there were 64 of them that married Christians. Of the 64 that married Christians, 5 have left the church and 59 are faithful. That sounds pretty close to 90%, doesn't it? Only 2 of these 64 have been divorced. I don't know about you, but that says something to me. When you marry outside the church, the odds are less than 1 in 2 that you'll remain faithful, and less than 1 in 5 that you'll ever have a Christian home. Now those are the odds that you're playing with. Suppose you were over at our house and we had a big field next door. It looked sort of snaky, and you'd say, boy, that looks sort of bad. I was going across there, but are there snakes out there? I say, oh yeah, rattlesnakes are out there, but only 4 out of 5 get bit. 1 out of 5 get across there without a scratch. Would you go across there? I doubt it. Suppose I said 1 out of 5 gets bit. Suppose I said 1 got bit last year. Suppose I said someone thought they saw a snake 10 years ago out there. You still wouldn't go, would you? I'm talking to you about something far more important than a snake bite. I'm talking to you about your soul. Do you know that? And I firmly believe that when you leave home, the 2 things that you can do more than anything else to ensure your faithfulness all your life to the Lord would be to go to a Christian college and to marry a Christian. Young people who do both of these things, what percentage of them do you think we'd keep? We'd keep right about 80% of them. Do you know that? 80 to 85% of them. But among our young people who do not do these 2 things, do you know what percent remain faithful to the Lord? Who never go to a Christian school and never marry a Christian? You know what percent remain faithful? Look around you. Less than 20, probably less than 15%. That says something to me. Don't trade your soul for a husband. The most important decision, young people, you'll ever make in your whole life is, am I going to give my life to the Lord? The second most important decision, young people, you'll ever make is, whom will I marry? And that decision could well determine the outcome of the first one. For the sake of your soul, marry a Christian. I told you I had a long point. Number 3, for the sake of your home, marry a Christian. Wouldn't you love to live in a home where it is just like fireworks whenever religion is brought up? Where it's just almost like a gas cloud floating and a spark would blow the roof off? Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't it be fun to be married to someone who resented the time you spent in serving the Lord and the money you gave and didn't enjoy the friends that you enjoyed or the activities that you enjoyed? Wouldn't that just be a blast? I have never known of anyone to marry outside the church who was a Christian and recommend that other people do it. I may take my first taker today, but I've never met one yet. I've never known of anyone to marry outside the church and say their homes were happier because they married a non-Christian. I may hear my first one today, but I don't think that I will. Whenever you have people that have the same basic beliefs and commitment, like maybe to the Word of God, you've got something solid there to keep them together. But when you find a couple that are having problems and getting along and you try to bring them together and you have no common ground to unite them, you've got problems. Did you know that? It may be trite, but the family that prays together stays together. Billy Graham, in one of his publications, said that in a home where there is a family altar, he means just any denominational group, any family, wherever they go to church, if they have a home devotional, a family altar, what he meant by that is a devotional at home. 90% of those homes stay together. Does that say anything to you? For the sake of your home, you need to marry a Christian. Jesus said in John 12, if I be lifted up, I draw all men to myself. 2 people cannot come nearer the Lord without getting nearer to each other. But if you've got your partner pulling you off this way, and you have the Lord pulling you this way, and there you are torn in the middle, something's got to give. You're going to have a split personality, or your relation with your partner is going to be strained, or you're going to become very, very lukewarm in your commitment to God. Something's got to give. People have compromised over here. People have had problems over here, and their homes have broken wide open. But when you've got both people coming to the same center, to the Lord, you've got something solid to hold that home together. When you are together worshiping God and living in harmony with His will as He would have a home be, you've got happiness in that home. You've got hope for that home. You've got something to hold that home together. For the sake of your home, marry a Christian. Oh, I'm not through. I've got a fourth one. I think I've killed that thing dead 3 times already. Here's the fourth one. For the sake of your children, marry a Christian. One time in the place where I was preaching, I got a phone call about bedtime one night. And the man that went to church there called me, and he was just in panic almost. He said, Brother Pryor, you've got to help me. He said, I go to church there where you preach, and my wife goes to her church, and we have 3 children, and they're getting on up in years. He said, what are we going to do? We can't keep dragging them back and forth. I started to say, well, it's a fine time for you to think of that and hang up on him. But being the sweet fellow I am, I didn't do that. But the thought did cross my mind. It's strange to me that after 12 or 13 years of marriage, you finally realized you had a problem. When I was about 9 or 10, one Saturday afternoon, I was out playing with my little buddy Phil. We were sitting on the curb. That's always a safe place to play, isn't it, out there on the street? And all of a sudden, he just grabbed his head like this and said, oh no, tomorrow's Sunday. He said, I hate Sunday. Well, what's the matter with Sunday? I said, Monday's a bad one. That's school starting up, you know. We can play all day as soon as we get home from church. Oh, it's terrible, he said. Mom will say, go to church with me, and Daddy will say, go to church with me, and Mom will start screaming and crying, and Daddy will start yelling. He said, I hate Sunday. You know, I never had that in my experience. I was blessed to have a spiritually united home. My mother and daddy were faithful Christians and still are. And I guess that's the first time that it ever dawned on me that there are many people that have these problems. And you can imagine what a hell that little boy must have gone through. No wonder he hated Sunday. For the sake of your children, you need to marry a Christian. Girls, that big good-looking thing that can dunk the basketball and run 100 yards in 10 seconds and all these important things, he may make the greatest lover in the world and just set your heart aflutter. If you marry him, he may make a great husband for you, but he will be the father of your children. And you just better back off and look him over one more time. Is that the kind of daddy you want your children to have? Is that the way you want your boy to be? And boys, that sweet little old thing that just sends goosebumps all over you when she gets within 20 feet of you, and just flutters her eyelids even if they are false, and just sends your heart soaring, may make the most beautiful sweetheart and maybe even lover and wife, but if you marry her, she's going to be the mother of your children. And what kind of mother do you want your children to have? Do you know what is the greatest thing you could give your children? It's not a new car. That's what you all thought I was going to say. It's what you're working on, isn't it? It's not even a college education, as important as that is, and as much in favor of it as I am. It's not even $1 million. The greatest thing you could give your children would be a Christian home. That's the greatest blessing. And you know, your children have no say-so about the kind of home they're going to grow up in. They have absolutely no choice as to whether they're going to have a Christian home or not. You make that choice for them. You make that choice, first of all, by the kind of person you are, and secondly, by the kind of a person you choose to marry. For the sake of your dearest children, you need to marry a Christian. If there's one thing that I want my children to have, it's a Christian home. And I'm glad they had a Christian home. When I've had to go away and preach, they were at church. And when I was gone, they bowed their heads and they prayed and gave thanks for their food. And they were told no when they needed to be told no. And they had their prayers at night. And that's just a warm feeling down in my tummy to know that that's the kind of training they get even when I'm not there. Do you know why they got that kind of training? Because they had a Christian mother. Do you know why they happened to have a Christian mother? You'd never guess, would you? Because I married a Christian. You know, it's so simple you think more people would catch on than do, wouldn't you? And do you know why they had a Christian father? It's because their mother married a Christian. I firmly believe the most important thing I could impress upon you young people in choosing the partner for your life is to choose someone who is as dedicated to the Lord as you are. You go out here and you find the most dedicated young man, dedicated to the Lord, and every one of you girls, go get him. And you find that girl that's the most loyal and faithful to the Lord, and every one of you boys, go get her. That's what you need. You know, there are lots of things I'm proud about my wife. I think she's pretty, and I think she's smart and sweet. But now that 20 years later or 25 years later, do you know what I'm the proudest of? Would you want to guess? I bet you've caught on by now, haven't you? She's a Christian. That, as I look back after 2 children are grown, that is what I'm the proudest of. Well, I've got just a few minutes, about 5 if I count right here, to tell you the third P. We're just going to have 3, aren't we? The first P was the plan. The second is the person. You've caught on to that one by now, haven't you? And then the third P is the preparation. And just 2 or 3 quick things I want to throw out. One is, don't get in a hurry to get married. Girls especially, I'm talking to you. You get 16 years old and everybody in the whole 10th grade is going steady but you, and it makes you nervous, doesn't it? And then you graduate from high school and the whole class gets married but you, and there's nothing left for you to do but go off to Abilene or Harding, isn't that right? Or OCC or wherever you want to go, that's great. And then, especially when you get to that senior year in college, the panic button strikes, isn't that right? You push the panic button. I'm going to be an old maid. Oh, it's all right. Don't get in a hurry to get married. Anybody can get married, that's no big deal. But marrying the right person, that's a big deal. There are young people coming back to college right now, just old enough to start dating seriously, who already have married and divorced and have a child. And I could show you a handful of them. Already having problems, and they're just now getting ready to start looking around seriously. Young people, wait until you're older to find that husband or wife. You can do better than you can do now. You're getting more suave and debonair, better looking, more mature, smarter. Wait until you go down on the other side of the hill and then grab one, you see. You can do better in a few years than you can now. Don't get in a hurry. Don't get in a hurry to get married. Whole lots of things are worse than not being married. Being married to the wrong one's 10 times worse. Secondly, if you're going to find a Christian, you've got to go where they are. Heard of some woman who wrote to Ann Landers and wanted to know why it was that every man that she met at the bar turned out to be no count. You think she could have read that over and saved the postage, wouldn't you? Finding a husband or wife's a lot like going fishing. You've got to go where they are. It doesn't matter how great a fisherman you are. If there are no fish there, you're not going to come home with many fish, are you? You can put the most expensive rod and reel and all that equipment there and fish in a bathtub and get nothing, isn't that right? Because no fish are in there usually. Girls and boys, you've got to go where they are. You're not going to find them down at these questionable places. You know where you're going to find them? Guess where you're going to find these people? You're going to find them at church. My mother used to tell me, when you go to a strange place, choose your best friends from the Wednesday night crowd at church. You don't have to go all the way through Dallas and Fort Worth and Bedford and Hurst and Euless and all these others, meeting every person. Just go to church. You'll find them there. You'll find those that are interested in what you should be interested in. Go to youth camps. Go to youth meetings. Go to Christian colleges. You thought I'd get that in, didn't you? I believe it. They make fun of these girls going there hunting a husband. Well, fine with me. You know, if our daughter never graduates but she finds a good Christian husband, I'd say our money was well spent. Where else could you find a good husband for $10,000? Isn't that right? Sometimes you see what your girl's about to marry, you'd gladly pay $10,000, wouldn't you? To say, here, let me swap that. We can't determine whom our children will marry, but we can stack the odds in our favor. We can put them in a Christian environment at a Christian campus where there are 90% Christians there. Now, if they want to find some sorry ones, they're there, you know. They can get the 10 or 15%, but at least we have the odds stacked in our favor. You've got to go where they are. And then, I think you have to be the right kind to attract the right kind. Again, it's like fishing. The kind of bait you put on the hook determines the kind of fish you'll catch. Back home in Kentucky, you put a worm on the hook, you catch a brim. You put a minnow on the hook, you catch a crappie. Put a dough ball on the hook, you catch a carp. I never wanted to catch a carp, so I never put a dough ball on the hook. Old carp sees that dough ball and says, yum, yum. Old crappie says, yeah. You know, he wouldn't bite that thing if it was the last thing in the water. Well, it's a lot like that. By the way you dress, by the way you talk, by the way you act, by the way you don't dress. You are attracting a certain kind of boy, girls, and you're repelling another kind. And if you hold your morals and won't allow boys to take liberty with you, there'll be some boys that won't ask you out anymore. You're no fun. I don't want to go out with you anymore. You'll see if I ever ask you out again. Oh, stick in the mud. Well, that's great. The sooner they leave you alone, the better, because that's not the kind of fish you're looking for. And boys, there are some good girls here, but they're not going to give you a second look until you're the right kind of boy. We're attracting. These boys are watching these girls. Did you know that? Yes, you knew that. Girls don't mind being looked over. They just don't want to be overlooked. And these girls are watching these boys too. Some of these girls right here can name every boy in this room, you know, that's eligible. They've already checked them all out and got them rated on 1 to 10. Yes, sir. They're watching. You don't think they are. They'll go home and talk about it all night too. They're looking. But if you want to attract the right kind of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you've got to be the right kind of a girl or a boy. I think that I have given to you what could be the most important lesson that you'll ever be given. It might be the difference between the salvation of your soul and your lost. It could well determine the eternal future of children yet unborn that'll be born to you. By all that's in me, may I plead with you to enter into this prayerfully and considerately. And I could hope for you more than anything else that you all would have a Christian home.
Christ the Lord is risen today. Hallelujah. Sons of men and angels sing. Hallelujah. Raise your joys and triumphs high. Hallelujah. Sing ye those now earth reply. Hallelujah. Lives again our glorious King. Hallelujah. Where, O death, is now thy sting. Hallelujah. Once he died our souls to save. Hallelujah. Where's a victory boasting grave? Hallelujah.
We hope you enjoyed that message as much as we did. Our thanks to Neale Pryor for the presentation and to ATV Productions in Grapevine, Texas for taping and producing these special programs. Now, this two-part lesson is available in booklet form, all written out, and on an audio cassette. We'll send either of these to you if you'll just send us your name and address. And now I'd like to tell you about a fine congregation in Dallas that supports this program, the Arcadia Park Church of Christ that meets at 146 North Bond Street in Dallas. Their Sunday morning worship service is at 10:30 a.m. If you live in that area, go visit them. And now until next week, may God bless you richly.
This has been The Truth in Love, sponsored by the Churches of Christ of the North Texas area. For a copy of today's program, additional information, or Bible correspondence course at no charge to you, please write The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. Once again, write The Truth in Love, Post Office Box 865, Hurst, Texas 76053. We invite you to attend the Church of Christ in your area. Join us again next Sunday at the same time for The Truth in Love.